It's nearly 3 years since life has been with change. The COVID pandemic meant that almost overnight, many companies had to let their staff work from home. It was a huge experiment in mass remote working. And today, it feels like we're getting the results. Now, you will probably read headlines saying that the office is dead or that workers will be able to negotiate 4-day weeks and unlimited time off. So what's really happening? Will the office become a thing of the past, or is this just the beginning of a hybrid era? We'll get into it in a moment, but first, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So let's start with what's actually going on out there in the world of work. Well, the big news is that some major companies are recalling workers to the office. In May, Tesla told staff they must work in the office for at least 40 hours a week. Elon Musk, its billionaire boss, said he wanted to make sure people weren't just working from their bed all day. Then in June, Apple said its workers would have to spend at least 3 days a week in the office. And more recently, the financial firm Goldman Sachs recalled its staff and said that only exceptional circumstances would allow them to work from home. Meanwhile, other companies are being more flexible. Microsoft is giving its staff the option to work remotely indefinitely. And early this month, Salesforce said its staff could split their time between the office and working from home. But these different approaches raise a big question. Do workers actually produce more when they work from home, in the office, or a bit of both? Well, this is hard to say because it depends on what kind of work you do and how much autonomy and self-discipline you have. Some types of work lend themselves to working from home. If you're an accountant, for example, you could probably do your work remotely. But if you're a doctor, you'd probably want to work in a hospital. Other jobs fall somewhere in between. Working from home might not be ideal, but it doesn't seem to make much difference either. Tech software engineers, for example, they often work in big teams and need to collaborate closely with colleagues. On the face of it, you might think that working in the office would make more sense. But studies suggest that productivity is pretty similar whether they work at home or in the office. As for the rest, well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Some people can concentrate better in the quiet of their own homes. Others find the separation between work and private life harder to maintain. And for others again, working from home means carrying responsibilities take over. In fact, it seems likely that how much you get done while working from home depends largely on your personality type. There's also plenty of evidence that suggests working from home is actually more productive for the employee. A study by consultancy McKinsey found that, on average, its consultants produce 47% more output per person when working from home compared to working in the office. And on average, each consultant spent 20% less time communicating. That's because video calls and instant messaging platforms make up for the inability to have face-to-face meetings. But there are also some downsides to working from home. For one thing, it can be harder to keep track of what people are doing when they're out of sight, as the old adage goes. You can't see what you can't measure. And that's especially true when it comes to something as subjective as productivity. This problem was highlighted by a recent survey by the consulting firm Willis Towers Watson. Of the 2,600 managers, it is surveyed across 22 countries. Two struggle to assess how well their employees were performing when working from home. And there are other reasons why employees might prefer staff to work in the office. Working from home can sometimes mean low productivity for the company too. After all, one of the most important aspects of any job is learning and training. If staff aren't in the office, it can be harder for them to learn the skills they need to progress in their careers. This is known as what they call social learning. Just by being around other people, you pick up useful information. You learn how the organization works, how decisions are made. WFH to speak to about certain issues and so on. But arguably the biggest drawback of working from home is that it can make it harder to build relationships with colleagues and clients, which is especially important in industries such as finance and tech, where building relationships is the core of that job. It's also worth mentioning that working from home isn't necessarily a positive experience for everyone. According to Zeus Office for National Statistics, people who live in shared houses or with partners or family are more likely to feel lonely when working from home. So it seems like whether or not working from home is a good thing depends on WHO. You can do what you prioritize. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no clear winner. In fact, there is a growing evidence that a hybrid approach that combines working from home with working in the office is best for both employers and employees. One way to think of it is as creating a hub-and-spoke system. Staff work remotely most of the time, but come into the office for important meetings or if they need access to resources that they don't have at home. This kind of system has been adopted by companies such as Twitter, which lets its staff work from home permanently, but encourages them to use its offices for collaboration and socializing. Companies that adopt this kind of flexible approach are not only more attractive to potential employees, they're also more resilient to future pandemics or other unforeseen circumstances. To be fair, it's not always easy to set up a good hybrid working model. You need to make sure that technology can support staff working in different locations, and it helps if you have good systems for matching productivity. But all that is doable. Our Stanford professor Nick Bloom argues that hybrid working is also good for workers because it gives them more choice, as it allows people to decide whether they work best at home or in the office and lets them alternate between the two. He also points out that this kind of flexibility can help companies retain talent because it makes work more compatible with family responsibilities and other commitments outside of work. But it's not only compatible with other commitments, it can also do them. A recent paper by Nicholas Bloom and his co-author, Microsoft's president Brad Smith, found that enabling hybrid working added 25% to employee satisfaction. Now that might sound like a trivial bump, but increasing worker satisfaction is notoriously difficult, so this is potentially a very big deal. The bottom line is that companies that offer hybrid working models are able to retain staff more easily, which means they can save money on recruitment and training, and crucially, be adopting a more flexible approach. Companies can benefit from the productivity gains associated with working from home while mitigating the drawbacks. Companies that recall staff to the office full-time are unlikely to attract and retain the best talent. But there's a caveat: hybrid working is likely to work best in certain sectors. If you're a bank, for example, where maintaining relationships with clients is crucial, you might want staff to work in the office more often. Or if you're a tech company where collaboration is key, you might lean towards a more flexible system. Ultimately, the future of working looks set to be a hybrid one. But what is becoming clear is that it is up to individual companies to figure out exactly what that means for them. And as our host Caitríona Perry points out, the idea of hybrid working is quite similar to the franchise model used by companies such as McDonald's or 7-Eleven. Each branch is individually owned and operated, but they all share the same brand and adhere to the same business model. Hybrid working is essentially letting employees run their own work-life balance franchises. Franchises pay a fee to the head office in exchange for being able to use the established business model and all the benefits that come with it, and in the same way that the franchise model has evolved over time, so will hybrid working. In other words, the future of work is looking increasingly flexible, and that means that the organizations that can adapt to this new world will be better equipped to drive in it. Thanks for watching.